Hi, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of Tech in Chicago. This is Colin Keeley, and today we are lucky enough to have Ryan Coon, the founder of Rentalutions, on. Rentalutions is an all-in-one property management software for landlords. Ryan was originally an investment banker before making the jump to entrepreneurship. We talk about what that transition was like and why you have to make sure you're starting a company for the right reasons, among other things. Without further ado, here's Ryan. So we have Ryan here today. Ryan, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you, Colin.
For people that maybe don't know what Rentalutions is, could you explain it?
Yeah, Rentalutions is the only all-in-one platform that helps do-it-yourself landlords easily manage condos, single-family homes, and small apartment buildings.
Could you dive into that a little bit more? So how does it work for them?
Yeah, so in the United States, there's 44 million rental units. About half of these units are owned by big institutional investors. The other half are owned by individual mom and pop type owners who are part-time landlords. On the institutional side, these guys have been using software for decades to make things run more efficiently, save time. But there's never been an all-in-one comprehensive solution for the individuals. And that's what we're really providing. So we help landlords find tenants, screen tenants, do the lease electronically, collect rent, and track and manage maintenance stuff.
So how did this become a thing? What's the origin story for it?
Yeah, so my co-founder Lawrence and I started the company. It was kind of idea on a napkin back in 2012. He and I had both been working in banking. The world had kind of stabilized. We had come out of the recession. And Lawrence and I at the time were starting to look at, hey, do we start buying investment properties? So we started talking with friends and family who were already in the business and realized how much of a headache it can be to manage rentals. And so we decided rather than start building a portfolio of real estate properties, why don't we solve that problem with technology?
What was that transition like from banking to entrepreneurship?
It was both challenging, but also somewhat easy. So working in an investment bank, you're used to putting in a lot of hours, working really hard, thinking outside the box. So after leaving banking, I actually enrolled in a coding school. I was in one of the first classes of Code Academy or Starter League here in the city when they were back before had office space. So Lawrence and I taught ourselves how to code. We were one of the first companies to actually move into 1871. Even before it opened publicly, we were in there. But at the time, it was an idea on a napkin. So it's been a lot of fun kind of riding the growth that we've seen kind of along with the Chicago community and how fast that's kind of grown and evolved.
So did you guys build the first version yourself?
We took a stab at building the first version. We ultimately ended up hiring a couple of freelancers. But that experience and understanding how to build a product and learn how to write code and everything was invaluable because it meant we were able to communicate with the freelancers a lot more effectively.
What year was that? When did you guys get started?
That was 2012. So we launched the kind of first alpha version of the product in early 13. So about 3 years ago.
What has been your biggest challenges to get to this point?
Biggest challenge for us, as I mentioned, we're going after half of the rentals in the United States. All these rentals are owned by 8 million individuals. So it's a very fragmented market. All these individual owners have full-time jobs. They don't necessarily belong to a landlord association. So our challenge from day one and even today is how do we find these customers?
What was that first product you launched? What did that entail and how is that different from today?
Yeah, the first version worked. The features that we had are more or less what we have today. But we were at the time very focused on building a great product for desktop. The biggest evolution in the product has been shifting from more of a desktop first approach that didn't work on mobile or tablets to going to more of a mobile responsive design. And I think today we focus a lot more on kind of usability and making sure the interface is intuitive.
How did you get those first users? It could be really hard initially going from 0 to 1 instead of like 1 to 100.
Yeah, so the very first users were friends and family who we had initially spoken with about this problem. From there, and it's one of the things that we didn't, I think, do a great job of, was building that audience early on. So to get the first customers, it was a lot of reaching out to people through Craigslist, which probably shouldn't be saying, but it worked for Airbnb, it worked for us. I think then it was just kind of word of mouth, a lot of just hustle.
So when you say reaching out through Craigslist, is it like you're acting like you're looking at renting their place and you show up and be like, hey, would you actually like to try this product?
We didn't go to that extreme, but more or less one of those find people who own investment properties and let them know that, hey, there's an easier way to promote your vacant rentals, and then after you've made that match with prospective tenants, say, you've done first step, we can help you with steps 2 through 10.
And so how are you finding those landlords today? Maybe they're not the most technical people. Are you Facebook advertising them or Google AdWords? Or anything?
Yeah, so with the market we're going after and the price point that we're at, we can't afford to have a full B2B sales team. We can't afford outbound sales calls. So we have to rely on them to find us. So right now we do a lot of paid search, so Google, Bing, Facebook, along with content marketing. So whenever an owner will Google for what questions do I ask a tenant, or what do I do if rent is paid late, we own the first 2 or 3 slots on Google for those search terms. When an owner clicks on those links, they land on a great 3,000-word blog post that helps them, walks through the 7 questions they should ask a tenant, and then there's a big call to action that says, hey, you can use our product to do this better.
What has your growth been like from that? I know you guys have some pretty awesome traction numbers.
Yeah, so right now we've got just under 20,000 individual landlords using our product from across the United States. They're in about 5,000 different zip codes, and we've been doubling year over year. So last year we went from about 9 to 18 just in 2015, and we're on pace right now to add another 18,000 landlords in 2016.
Have you guys raised money yet?
Yeah, so we closed a $750,000 seed round in August of last year. That was primarily people who understand real estate, individual angels, Metaprop NYC, which is a kind of early real estate tech focused fund out of New York. They were one of the leads of that.
And how did you go about that fundraising? These people you already knew?
It was a lot of hustle. I think for us, a lot of the investors we spoke with early on saw challenges with the business because of how fragmented our market is. And that scared a lot of people away. I think we ultimately had to prove that we were able to acquire these customers, attractive unit economics. So finding the investors was similar to finding new landlords. It just took a lot of work.
And how big are you guys now? How many employees do you have?
So right now we have 5 full-time. We're in the process of bringing on another 2. So we should be at 7 within the next week or 2.
And all Chicago hires?
Everyone on our team is in Chicago, is in our office. What's interesting is one of the guys who came on board last year, he had moved from Germany to work with us. Another guy was living in Washington, D.C. He was working for the government, former Marine. He's on our team now. So we've, I think, it's been a really interesting path kind of bringing on new people.
How did you end up starting the business here in Chicago?
The short answer is both my co-founder and I grew up here. We both went to University of Illinois. We were living in the city, and just started here because it's where we were geographically. But I think it's worked out incredibly well. We've spent time on both the West Coast and the East Coast, and I have to say the Chicago ethos, the Chicago community has been extremely supportive. It's also worked out because it's frankly lower cost of living than being in the Bay Area or Manhattan.
Where are you guys based in the city?
So we've got an awesome office at like Chicago and Franklin, 900 North Franklin, just north of the Chicago Brown Line stop.
Very cool. I'm in it right now. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
I like the concrete floors.
Yeah, old industrial building, but.
As you've transitioned from being a banker to a founder, what's the best advice you've received?
It's hard to pinpoint one piece of advice. I think there's a lot of really smart, successful people in Chicago who've all offered great advice. So it's really hard to kind of single out one. I think the challenge is just figuring out what advice makes the most sense for your particular business, or in our case for Rentalutions. A lot of Chicago tech is built around enterprise kind of B2B business models, and that isn't what we are. So I think being able to filter out the tidbits that work for us and the ones that maybe don't, that's been part of the challenge, but also a fun thing to do.
So if you could go back to when you're starting the company on day one and talk to yourself for 15 minutes, what would you have said?
Yeah, the thing that I wish we would have done from day one was start building an audience for our product before the product even launched. So as I mentioned, we hired freelancers to build the MVP of the product. During that time, I wish that Lawrence and I had been devoting all of our time and effort into developing a blog, developing an audience of landlords, and really establishing us as the authoritative voice on all things DIY landlord.
So you say establishing a blog. Have you found the whole content marketing very effective?
Yeah, it's one of our most effective marketing channels today. So putting out really good high quality content, sharing that on different social media channels. We've got an email list right now of about 200,000 individual landlords. So sharing our content with those landlords is really effective.
That's a massive email list. How do you build it so big?
There's some magic, some kind of scrappy startup stuff that goes into building a list that size. But we also, on our blog, have an email capture. So landlords can subscribe to an email list. They get great content every month from that.
Are you guys hitting social media hard at all? Do you have a beautiful Instagram somewhere?
We don't have an Instagram. We do a lot on Twitter and Facebook. Facebook has been really good for us, both kind of organic, and we've had a lot of success with the paid ads on Facebook, just with how you can target people.
I'd like to dive into how the product works a little bit more for landlords. Do you guys take first month's rent, or how's that all work?
Yeah, so for a landlord signing up for our product, let's assume his or her unit is vacant. It's a condo in River North. They need tenants. So they can come onto our site and within a couple minutes create a profile of this unit, of the condo. So how many beds, baths, description, title, photo, amenities, etc. Then with the push of a button, we get that listing out onto Zillow, Trulia, PadMapper, HotPads, Rent.com, all those sites that tenants are searching for available properties. the average listing will get 16 leads per unit. So from there, if you're the landlord, you've got to narrow that list from 16 interested tenants down to the one who you want to rent to. So we have an integration with TransUnion. We have online rental applications. Then tenants can easily pop in their social security number, pay a small fee for the background and credit check. We provide all that information back to the landlord so he or she can pick the right tenants that he or she wants to rent to.
So the landlord steps in and shows the place and then
requests this application. Tenants will come on. It's a very standard, secure way of applying for a property. If you think about, I know almost all the properties I've ever rented, I'm filling out all my personal info on this sheet of paper. I hand this information over to a stranger, everything they need for identity theft. It doesn't really make sense. So we help solve that problem as well.
How's it work from the consumer point of view, the renter?
Yeah, so renters have a beautiful interface, works really well on their smartphone, where they can create an account, they can apply for properties, they can digitally sign their lease agreements, and then they can make their rent payments every month. Works really well for them. They can also submit maintenance issues. And all of this for a landlord is free. For one unit, completely free. For 2 or more units, the subscription starts at just $25 a month.
Wow, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's a lot different than the whole first month's rent type of brokerage model. I think with the product, it's the biggest value add to landlords is that it saves them time. And a lot of landlords really all the time comment on, hey, I wish I knew about this 5 years ago, just because it makes things so easy. One of our landlords down in Texas emailed me a couple weeks ago and said, hey, this product made it so easy to be a landlord, I've bought more rental properties. And that's really cool validation to see in here.
Are there any other founders or companies you look up to?
Yeah, I think one of the Chicago companies that I look up to a lot is Grubhub. So I've spoken with Matt and Mike a few times. They're awesome, super down-to-earth guys. But when they started Grubhub back in 2002, 2003, the tech community in Chicago wasn't what it was today. So they had to persevere and had a ton of challenges and obstacles and things that frankly we've gone through as well. And they were able to show that through hard work and just sticking with it, great things can happen.
How have you seen the Chicago tech scene change in your time? So you're at the start of 1871, and I imagine it's way different now.
Yeah, it's a lot different. The biggest difference is the number of events and the number of opportunities to connect with each other. I think pre-1871, pre-2012, entrepreneurs were more or less working remotely from different coffee shops all across the city, working from home. And now there's these great spaces, 1871, WeWork, and others where entrepreneurs can come together, collaborate, and share ideas.
Are there any Chicago tech events you like to go to?
There was a great one last night hosted by Chicago Tribune, Blue Sky Social. Great people there, some really inspiring conversations and ideas. Talked with entrepreneurs doing mobile games, doing software for the restaurant industry. Really cool.
Do you have a favorite book?
One of the books that a friend recommended to me and I read a couple of years ago was The Monk and the Riddle. And it's a book basically follows a Silicon Valley entrepreneur through his journey starting a company. And the story is all about kind of finding your passion. So it talks about the guy wants to start a company to make a boatload of money. And the mentor, the investor who he's pitching at the time, really makes it clear that you've got to be committed to building this for the right reasons, to building a company. And I think it's really important for me and for a lot of entrepreneurs to keep that in mind, that building an Uber or a Snapchat or one of those unicorn companies, that's by far the outlier. There's a lot more opportunity to build a really good, strong, sustainable, successful company. But you've got to be in it for the right reasons. You've got to be passionate about what you're doing, passionate about solving a problem for your customers, for your users. So I think there's a lot of great messages in there.
Are you a landlord yourself?
My family owns some rental properties.
Okay, so you're able to test it out, eat your own dog food?
Yep. Yeah, it's once you do that, you kind of realize a lot of the product things that don't really make a lot of sense in the real world that they would in kind of the test dream on a whiteboard.
And what's your vision for the long term for Rentalutions?
Yeah, right now we're 100% focusing on growing users. That's a huge focus for us. We doubled last year. We're going to double again this year. In addition to that, we've also started working with a couple outside companies who have different products or services that our landlords and tenants need. So for example, last year we started working with a large insurance company and connecting the renters who are coming through Rentalutions with renters insurance. That's working extremely well. It's a win-win relationship. And I think we're looking at doing a lot more of those types of strategic partnerships.
Could you negotiate a bulk discount if you get big enough with that?
That's one of our goals, is saying these 8 million landlords and all of their tenants, we hope to be able to someday deliver different discounts, different offers that only exist for our audience.
Well, it's very exciting. We wish the best for you. Thank you for coming on tonight.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Colin.
If you're a landlord, definitely check out Rentalutions. It makes your life way easier. And if you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and review Tech in Chicago on iTunes. Reviews and ratings help a lot. I'd really appreciate it. And I'd love to hear from you guys. Tech in Chicago on Twitter. Thanks.